I still remember last Christmas night like a long crack on a frozen lake. It looks peaceful, but one light touch and it shatters. Winter in Madison that year was so cold that just the wind blowing through was enough to make hearts shrink. I thought I'd remember that winter for the snow, for the twinkling lights decorating the school gates, or for the smell of hot cocoa in the Cardinal Cafe where we used to sit. But no, I remember it because that was the night I thought the feelings between me and Wyatt had died completely. Our story never officially started, so no one knew when it had ended. Wyatt, the guy with lightly tousled brown hair, always wearing that charcoal hoodie that only God knows how many times he washed it a week, came into my life with small things. Late dinners after football practice, 1 a.m. calls just to ask, "Hey, you asleep yet?" Times when he sat so close I had to hold my breath to keep my heart from jumping out of my chest. We were close. Too close in a way that no one on his team or in my class would suspect. But that more-than-friends feeling, I kept it inside like a secret that hurt myself. That Christmas night, I sat alone in the dorm, watching students head home. And me, stuck with longing for someone who was never truly mine. Wyatt had gone back to his home state a few days earlier. I thought he'd text, or call, or at least drop a "Merry Christmas, Wes." But the chat box stayed as cold as the snowy night outside. I drank my last cup of cocoa before the downstairs cafe closed, listening to an old winter playlist and watching the colored lights reflect through the window. I remembered Wyatt's smile, the one that hit me right in the chest, the way he tilted his head when asking simple, ridiculous things like, "Wes, what do you think makes people fall in love?" I remembered it all, and that memory hurt more than I imagined. At that moment, I told myself, this is the end. He chose silence, and I finally had to learn to stop hoping. Time passed. At that moment, I told myself, this is the end. He chose silence, and I finally had to learn to stop hoping. Time passed faster than I thought. This year's winter blanketed everything old with fresh snow, including the wounds I thought I'd overcome. I started the new semester at the University of Wisconsin-Madison with a mindset of not letting anyone into my heart anymore. The kind of defense my friends said made me look like a 60-year-old man trapped in a sophomore's body. That evening, the snow fell so thick that the hallway lights in the dorm reflected off the ground like fog. I just showered, hair still damp, about to grab a bowl of ramen when there was a knock. At first, I thought it was my floormate borrowing a pot or someone asking for salt. I opened the door, grimacing as I said, "Dude, at this hour." I froze. Wyatt was standing at my door, in the snow, his breath still misty with cold. Old charcoal hoodie, messy hair, eyes red from the cold or something I didn't dare guess. And in his hands, a gift box wrapped in deep red paper, tied with pale yellow ribbon. He looked at me as if the past year was just a strange dream, and this moment was the real reality. "Hi, Wes," he said, voice slightly hoarse, familiar enough to squeeze my heart. I'm a year late, but I brought you a Christmas gift." I had to grip the doorframe because my legs felt like jelly. A year. No messages. No explanations. No reason for me to blame or forgive. And now, here he was, standing right in front of me, as if nothing had happened. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. "Wyatt, what are you doing here?" He bowed his head slightly, taking a breath as if gathering courage. "This time, I don't want to disappear anymore." That sentence. God. It was enough to wake every memory, every longing, every hurt all at once. But I didn't know what to feel. Anger, joy, hurt, anticipation, all mixed together, making my chest ache like it wanted to explode. "Why?" I asked. "Why now?" Wyatt looked at me with those eyes I once hated myself for liking too much. "Because I can't ignore the truth anymore, Wes." I was confused. "What truth?" He held the gift box toward me, his hands trembling slightly. "The truth is, I miss you so much that I can't take it anymore." The hallway was dead silent, only the wind whistling through the door cracks and my heart pounding wildly as if trying to escape my chest. I swallowed, feeling like the world slowed down. A year I'd waited for him to say that. A year I'd told myself I was stupid for waiting. But now, with him standing at my door in the middle of winter, with a Christmas gift a year late. I didn't know if I had the courage to open it. I stood leaning against the doorframe, cold enough to get goosebumps but unsure if it was from the snow or from Wyatt looking at me in a way that made all the defenses I'd built over the past year start to crumble. I knew I should say something, anything, but my brain was frozen like snow, unable to think. Wyatt still held the gift, his breath forming white puffs in the air. He looked awkward, a kind of awkward unlike the Wyatt I knew, the one who always entered a room like everything belonged to him, standing on the field without hesitation, laughing louder than everyone at parties. Now, he stood at my door like a lost child, just hoping someone would pull him back. "I know you're mad," Wyatt said, voice softer than the wind. "I'm not mad," I reflexed, then realized how ridiculous the lie was. I corrected, I'm mad, but I don't know what I'm mad about anymore." Wyatt nodded, looking down at his snow-covered sneakers. "Fair enough, because I disappeared without a word." "I know. Why?" I asked again for the second time, as if asking enough would make me understand something that never had an answer. He looked up, his eyes flickering with fear, regret, longing. "Wes, I was so stupid," he said. "Literally. I was scared of what I felt. Scared it would change everything between us. Scared you'd leave if I told the truth." I gave a bitter smile. "So you chose to leave first?" Wyatt closed his eyes for a moment, as if my words actually hurt him. "Yeah," he whispered, "and that was the dumbest mistake of my life." That moment felt so heavy I had to step back into the room. "Come in," I said, almost on autopilot. Wyatt stepped in, slowly, carefully, as if each step feared breaking something inside me. When the door closed, the wind noise vanished, leaving only the awkward silence of two guys who'd left their hearts hanging for too long. My room was small, just enough for a single bed, a desk, and some old pizza boxes I'd promised myself to clean last week. Wyatt looked around and smiled faintly. "Looks just like last year." "I'm used to it," I replied, crossing my arms to hide my shaking hands. Wyatt set the gift on the desk. I meant to give it to you last Christmas. But I didn't have the courage." I looked at the gift. It was small, square, with a slightly crooked fold at the corner. Clearly Wyatt had wrapped it himself. I hadn't opened it, but it felt like it contained something heavy enough to knock my heart off track. "Should I open it?" I asked. "Up to you." His voice was so soft. I'd never heard Wyatt speak like that. I sat down in the chair, facing him. The smell of snow and Wyatt's familiar hoodie filled the room, hitting my memories hard. My hand touched the gift. I took a deep breath. As I untied the ribbon, Wyatt suddenly said, "Wes, don't open it if you don't want to hear the truth. Because what's inside is why I disappeared." My hand stopped. Over the past year, I thought I'd prepared for every answer. I'd written hundreds of scenarios in my head. Wyatt forgot me. Wyatt liked someone else. Wyatt found me annoying. Wyatt was scared people would think we had something. But what he just said made me unable to guess anymore. I opened the box lid. Inside was a thin silver necklace with a small maple leaf pendant, and with it a folded piece of paper. I took out the paper, unfolded it, and saw Wyatt's handwriting. Slightly slanted, a bit messy, but very Wyatt. "If I had the courage, I want to give Wes the one eye." The pen stopped there. No ending. I looked up. Wyatt was looking at me, not avoiding, not defending, just waiting. "I wrote that the night I realized I liked you," Wyatt said, voice choked. "But I was scared. Too scared. So I ran. I didn't know what to think anymore. I just felt my heart pounding so fast it wanted to tear me in two." "Why now?" I asked again, voice smaller. Wyatt stepped closer, his shoes crunching on the floor from the snow. He stood right in front of me, close enough I could hear his breathing clearly. "Because I've tried to forget you for a year," he said. "But I couldn't." That sentence left me sitting motionless, as if the room's gravity pressed on my chest. I tried dating others, tried focusing on football, tried everything not to remember your voice, the way you furrow your brows when stressed, the smell of fabric softener on your shirt. But every time it snowed, I only thought of one person. Wyatt swallowed hard. You, Wes. My body reacted before my brain understood. Something inside me snapped. Not the hurt, but the shell I'd built to stop hoping. I don't expect you to forgive me, Wyatt said. I just don't want this Christmas to pass without you knowing the truth. I looked down at the necklace again. A year. An unfinished word. A gift never given. And now, Wyatt standing right in front of me with all the honesty I'd ever wanted. I looked up at him. Wyatt, I don't know what to do with you anymore. He smiled faintly. A sad but relieved smile, as if just not being chased away was the biggest gift. Just let me stay tonight, he whispered. And my heart, the one that had declared itself frozen, began to melt piece by piece. My small room suddenly felt too cramped for two people, but just wide enough for the truth to flood in. When Wyatt said, stay tonight, I felt my heart skip a beat. Not the shocked or panicked skip, but because I knew, if I let him stay, everything between us would change. No going back. Stay? For what? I asked, voice so small it didn't sound like mine. Wyatt didn't answer right away. He just looked at me for a few seconds. A deep, slow, meaningful look, then exhaled softly. Stay to talk to you, he said. To explain. To apologize. To... He paused, his eyes trembling slightly. Not miss any more minutes with you. I didn't know where to look. At those warm brown eyes? At his snow-dusted hands? Or at the necklace lying in my palm like a confession held captive for a year? I'm not sure. I can trust you right away, I said. I know. Wyatt nodded immediately, no resistance. I won't force you, but I won't disappear anymore. Even if you push me away, I'll be here to prove it. The Wyatt I knew from last year would never say these things. He was too confident, too impulsive, too like sunshine to think he'd ever hide behind clouds. But the one in front of me now looked like he'd gone through a long winter without me by his side. I stepped back, gesturing for him to close the door. Okay. Stay. Wyatt let out a breath like he'd unloaded months of weight. Thank you, Wes. We sat on the floor, backs against the bed. The floor was cold enough to seep through my sweatpants, but Wyatt's presence next to me was contradictorily warm. His shoulder brushed mine just a little, but enough to make me tense like a string. Are you ready to hear me? Wyatt asked. Up to you. But I won't promise it'll be easy. Wes. His voice softened. I don't want it easy. I just want it real. I swallowed hard. Okay. So, talk. Wyatt looked down at his interlaced hands. I know I owe you an explanation. When last winter came, I realized my feelings for you weren't just normal friendship. And it freaked me out. Freaked out enough to disappear? I bit my lip lightly. Wyatt winced. Yeah, stupid. But I was messed up. The whole team always talked about real men, how to act, who to love. And my heart raced every time you smiled at me. I looked up. I never demanded you be like me. No. But I demanded it of myself. Wyatt sighed. And I forced myself into that mold until I didn't realize I was hurting the most important person. I sat silent, letting his words fall like snowflakes into the space between us. I left because I was scared if I said I liked you, you'd disappear from my life, Wyatt said. But in the end, I was the one who disappeared. That hit me hard enough I had to turn away. A year wondering if I wasn't good enough. A year blaming myself. A year missing someone I thought didn't miss me anymore. Wes, Wyatt called softly. If I could go back to that Christmas night, I'd choose to stay. I tell you everything. I wouldn't leave you alone. I gripped the necklace in my hand. Do you know how long I waited for a message from you? Wyatt closed his eyes. I know, and I'm sorry. I thought I needed time to understand myself, but the farther from you, the more I realized. Without you, everything's missing. I stayed silent. Wyatt turned to look at me, voice low, real enough to make it hard to breathe. I like you, Wes. I've liked you for a long time, and I still like you now. No more avoiding. No running. No pretending. The room seemed to tighten. Wyatt continued, "If you don't want me, I'll accept it. But I can't stay silent anymore." My heart pounded like it was trying to break free. I turned toward him. "When you disappeared, I thought I'd been abandoned again. I hate that feeling. Hated it enough to promise myself not to let anyone touch my heart again." Wyatt looked at me, eyes full of regret. "I know. And it'll take time for me to fix it." I inhaled, exhaled slowly. "But..." Wyatt looked up quickly, his messy hair shifting with the motion. "But I've never stopped liking you." He froze, as if his heart had just been squeezed hard. Neither of us said anything for a few seconds. Then Wyatt, very gently, touched his fingertips to my palm holding the necklace. I startled, the tiny touch like an electric shock. "Can I?" he asked. "What?" "Put it on for you." I hesitated a second, then nodded slightly. Wyatt stood first, offering his hand. I placed mine in his. He pulled me up, gentler than I'd ever seen him touch anyone. Wyatt stepped behind me, the smell of snow mixing with his warmth. His fingers brushed the back of my neck, light enough to give me chills. "Wes," he whispered as he clasped the chain. "I want this Christmas to be a new beginning, not an end." I turned around. Wyatt's face was closer than I thought. Close enough I felt his breath on my lips. "So," I whispered, "how do you plan to start?" Wyatt looked at me for exactly 1 second. A second longer than the year I'd waited for him. Then he stepped half a step closer. "Like this, if you'll allow it." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just closed my eyes and let Wyatt decide the final distance between us. Wyatt didn't kiss me right away. He stood very close, close enough for me to hear his heartbeat in the silent space. Part of me wanted to urge him on, wanted everything to happen fast like how my heart always betrayed reason. But another part, the part abandoned on Christmas night last year, trembled. Wyatt noticed. He pulled back half a step, his eyes never leaving me. "I won't touch you if you're not ready." I opened my eyes, looking at him. Maybe never in his life had Wyatt looked so gentle. Not the flirtatious gentleness used on anyone, but the gentleness of someone who'd lost something and was terrified of losing it again. I swallowed. "Just need you not to disappear anymore." Wyatt's face softened. "Wes, if I disappear again, it'll only be because I froze to death in the snow. As long as I'm breathing, I'll be by your side." I let out a small laugh, just enough to break the tension wrapping around us. "I don't want you to freeze," I said. "So, can I?" Wyatt leaned in, not advancing further, just tilting enough for his question to hang between us. I nodded slightly. With that, Wyatt leaned down, pressing his lips to mine. Light, slow, like he was placing a promise on my lips, not a kiss. I felt everything in me melt. The winter, the hurt, the defenses, all warming up again. When he pulled away, I found myself breathing fast, and Wyatt, looking at me like I was the only gift he'd been waiting for all year. "Okay," I said softly. "Not bad." Wyatt chuckled lightly. "Not bad? That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Up to you. Want to try again for a higher score?" Wyatt didn't miss that chance, of course. But the second time, the kiss was deeper, slow but sure, like he feared I'd turn to smoke and vanish. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him closer, and in that moment, everything outside faded. Only the cold snow smell, warm breath, and the truth that I'd wanted this longer than I'd admit. We sat back on the floor, shoulder to shoulder, but this time with no distance between us. Wyatt held my hand, twirling the small leaf on the necklace. "I bought this at a little shop in town," Wyatt said. "They said the maple leaf symbolizes coming home." I tilted my head to look at him. "Home?" Wyatt nodded lightly. "I don't know why, but I thought of you when I heard that." I turned away, my heart warming uncomfortably. "If you keep saying stuff like this, I won't sleep." "Then I'll say it until you do," Wyatt teased, then rested his head on my shoulder. I didn't push him away. Outside the window, snow kept falling thickly, the streetlights casting a golden glow into the room like a silent embrace around us. The night was cold, but I'd never felt so warm. "Wes?" Wyatt asked, voice small like he feared breaking the peace. "What? If you want, I want us to give each other a real chance. Not the uncertain kind. Not hanging." I was silent for a few seconds.
"I'm scared."
"I know. Scared you'll leave again." Wyatt sat up straight, turning to face me, placing both hands on my knees like he wanted to ensure I heard every word. "I promise. If I'm scared, I'll say it. If I'm confused, I'll say it too. But I won't run anymore. I won't leave you to pick up the pieces I caused alone." I looked into his eyes, real enough that doubt had no room to slip in. "Do you think we can do it?" I asked. Wyatt smiled, not the confident football player smile, but the certainty of someone who'd thought about this for a long time. "I think we're worth trying." I sighed, but it was the kind where my chest lightened. "Okay, but you have to let me get mad a few more times." "As many as you want," Wyatt laughed. "As long as you let me stay here." I looked at him for a long time, as if trying to etch this moment into memory. So if one day I doubted again, I could recall Wyatt's face tonight. Honest, expectant, and a bit trembling. I grabbed his wrist. "So, we try from the beginning?" Wyatt raised an eyebrow. "From the beginning how? Like two guys meeting in winter. One in a dirty hoodie, one in glasses. One likes football, one likes hot drinks. One too impulsive, one too sensitive." Wyatt laughed. "Sounds like a romance movie." "Well, you like me." I shrugged. "Yeah," he said, moving a bit closer. "And I'll keep liking you." Wyatt pressed his forehead to mine, light like a promised touch. Outside, the snow didn't stop falling. Inside, something was beginning. Slowly, warmly, right on time, even if a year late. The evening continued in a strangely pleasant way. After so many emotions flipped upside down, I thought we'd be awkward or do something stupid to ruin the mood. But no, we just stayed together. Wyatt still sat close, head resting at an angle on my shoulder like he'd done it his whole life. I didn't understand where he got that comfort from, or maybe he was afraid I'd change my mind, so he clung like a cat afraid of water. I pretended not to notice. "Are you cold?" Wyatt asked, though his body was clearly radiating heat like a portable oven. "I'm cold but not freezing," I replied. Wyatt made a thoughtful sound, very serious. "I can fix that." I raised an eyebrow. "Don't say you're going to take off your coat for me." "I swear I'll." Wyatt raised his hand.
"No."
"I mean." He stood up, went to the desk, rummaged through some paper bags. "I brought stuff." "Great. Right now you look like a slightly narcissistic Santa." Wyatt shook his head lightly, but the corner of his mouth twitched up. He pulled out a small box, came back, and sat next to me again. His hands trembled a bit, the excited kind, not cold. "I bought this before I knew we'd talk like this," Wyatt said. "But I still want to give it to you." I carefully opened the box. Inside was a pair of light gray wool gloves, simple, but with a thin red trim at the cuffs, warm, nice, and clearly the style I'd choose. "Wyatt," I said softly. "They're kinda lame," he quickly explained. "I'm not good at picking gifts like you." "God, he thinks the maple leaf necklace is a good gift?" "Not lame," I said, shaking my head. "You notice more than you think." Wyatt's ears turned red, visibly. "I don't want you to be cold," he mumbled. I picked up one glove, tried it on. Fit perfectly. "Not cold anymore." Wyatt looked at me like he'd won a world championship. We both lay sprawled on the rug a few minutes later, shoulder to shoulder, legs stretched toward the glowing heater. No one spoke, no one tried to break the silence. It was that rare kind, comfortable, not tense, not forced. "I have something to ask," I whispered. "Anything," Wyatt replied. "Last year, when you didn't come to the school's Christmas party, what was the real reason?" Wyatt didn't answer right away. He took a deep breath, long and slightly shaky. "Wes, I was prepared to go. I put on my coat, went out, but I panicked." "Panicked?" Wyatt nodded. I was scared if I went, everything would change. And I wasn't ready to admit to anyone, even myself, that I liked you that much. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't ditch you because I didn't want to, he continued. I ditched because I liked you too much. You get it? I was scared I'd ruin your life. Or you'd reject me. I was silent for a long time. I waited. I know. And I'm sorry. Wyatt sat up, turning to face me again. He didn't touch me, but you could see he wanted to. This year, Wyatt said, I told myself if I had any chance, even the smallest, I wouldn't run anymore. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You have a chance. But only because I had to hold back to keep my voice steady. I haven't been able to forget you. Wyatt exhaled lightly, like unloading a forest of weight from his shoulders. I don't deserve it, he said. I know, I replied flatly. Wyatt laughed, burying his head in my shoulder. You're so brutally honest. But I don't deserve it either, I added, soft but true. So we're even. Wyatt looked up, gazing at me with deep brown eyes like he was looking at someone he'd lose if he blinked. I want this year to be different, Wes. Me too. Wyatt inhaled. Give me another chance. I looked at his face, slightly anxious, expectant, and full of sincerity, and I realized I'd wanted to give him a chance for a long time. I just needed him to say it himself. I placed my hand on his cheek, gentle like how he'd touched me earlier. Okay, but this time if you run, I'll drag you back by the collar. Wyatt smiled. I promise. I kissed him again, this time initiating, clear, no defenses. And Wyatt, he almost melted under that kiss. Not melting from weakness, but melting because he finally got to touch what he'd longed for over a long year. I pulled away from his lips, saying softly, Wyatt, yeah, are you staying over? Wyatt's eyes widened. A light shock but no objection. I mean, my ears turned red. Actually sleep. On the bed. Nothing else. I don't want to, rush things. Wyatt nodded vigorously, his hair falling over his forehead. Sleep. Yeah. I'm great at sleeping. I can sleep next to you. Easy. Very easy. I burst out laughing. We got up, tidied a few things, turned off some lights, and when we climbed into bed, we lay a small distance apart. Not too far, not too close. After a while, in the dark, Wyatt softly called, Wes. What? I might hold your hand. While sleeping. Whatever, I said, turning toward him. I won't stop you. Wyatt scooted closer, placing my hand in his, the touch light enough that it felt like holding a warm secret. Good night, he said. Good night, I replied, and for the first time in a long while, winter didn't feel so cold anymore. The wall clock in the living room ticked softly, just enough for me to feel the space quieting. But my heart wasn't quiet. Something was pounding hard, hot, and full of anticipation. I stood there, one hand holding the gift, the other on the door, as if letting go would change the world's color. Wyatt still looked at me like that, his eyes not avoiding, not defensive, not angry. Just honest enough to make me want to turn away because it reminded me I'd once touched that warmth. Then let it drop myself. Come in, Wes, he said, voice very light. I stepped in, closing the door, the click startling me slightly, like a period, but I didn't know if it was the end or the start. In the small apartment, there was a newly set up Christmas tree, twinkling lights, wrapped gifts at the base, and a pair of red stockings by the fireplace. Like a typical American Christmas movie home, except no face of mine here this year. I rubbed my hands. You prepared big for the holiday. Wyatt shrugged. I just did it for the sake of it. Not much fun. My heart tightened. Because of me? I asked so softly I thought Wyatt didn't hear. But he smiled sadly. Not just because of you, but yeah, the past year felt empty. That made me drop my arms, not knowing where to look. I wasn't used to Wyatt being honest to the point of brutality. But I knew he wasn't saying it to hurt me. Just no reason to hide anymore. Okay, Wyatt suddenly said, rubbing his hands hard like wanting to shatter the tense air. So, what's that gift? You've been holding it since the door. I took a deep breath. This? I wanted to give it to you last Christmas. But then I didn't dare. Wyatt's eyes widened. What? You've kept it for a year? Yeah. I didn't know what to do with it. Throwing it away felt weird. Keeping it hurt. Giving it. I shrugged, self-mocking smile. You see, a year later I finally did it. Wyatt looked at me long enough that I started feeling hot-faced. Then he gently sat on the sofa, patting the space next to him. Come here. Open it with me. Wyatt's voice, just like last year. Warm, light, and enough to throw my heart off beat. I walked over, sat down, trying to keep distance, but the sofa was too small. My knee accidentally brushed his leg. Wyatt didn't move away. I handed him the gift. Warning. It's nothing big. He unwrapped slowly, like not wanting to tear any part. When the wooden box appeared, Wyatt laughed. Wes, this. It was the box he'd seen in a small shop 2 years ago. A photo box engraved with the initials of 2 names. Back then Wyatt had said, looks cute. Huh? If we get to take more photos, I want to buy this. I'd bought it. But then I left. And the box sat in my closet corner like a reminder. Wyatt opened the lid. Inside was just one photo. Us grinning in the park by school. The first snowy day of that winter. He touched the photo like touching an aged memory. Wyatt! My voice hoarse. I'm sorry. Really sorry. He turned to me, lips slightly pursed. I was mad at you. Really mad. Wyatt said. But I also understood why you ran. You were scared. I know. The way you looked at me then, I could guess. I bowed my head, guilt running down my spine. I thought if I left, I'd feel less of that. I confessed. But it didn't go away. It got worse. Me too. Wyatt exhaled heavily. Every winter, every snowfall, I remember the day I thought we'd become something. There was a short silence. Then Wyatt lightly touched the back of my hand. But this year, you showed up at my door. With an old gift. With that look like, I don't know what to do but am trying. I let out a small laugh. Yeah, probably that look. Wyatt looked deep into me. Wesley, what do you want from me? I clenched my fist. This was the question I'd avoided for a year. But I didn't want to avoid anymore. I want a second chance. I said slow but sure. Not to go back like before, but to do it right this time. But to do it right this time. Wyatt was silent. My heart pounded so hard I feared he'd hear. But then he set the photo box on the table, turning fully to face me. Wes, I don't know what the future holds. Wyatt said, voice trembling lightly. But if you want to go with me, I still want to try. I exhaled sharply, almost not believing my ears. Really? Yeah. Wyatt smiled. But this time, don't run anymore. I grabbed his hand. No hesitation, no fear. I promise. Wyatt leaned in, forehead to forehead. Merry early Christmas, Wesley. Merry Christmas, Wyatt. Snow outside the window began to fall. Light and slow, just like last winter. But in this small room, between 2 hands gripping each other tight, I knew one thing for sure. This year won't end like last year. And maybe this isn't the end, but the first line of a new chapter.